Hello everyone. So today I want to talk about my experience with a swollen lymph node that had pretty much every red flag on Google. And you should probably know that I have really bad health anxiety, so of course I genuinely thought that my time had come. And it all happened because during my winter break of college, I got a very mild cold, and it was so mild that it was basically just me sneezing and being full of boogers, and I had no fever, no headache, and no crazy stuff going on. And so fast forward to 2 weeks later, I'm completely over the cold and I'm healthy. And I'm laying on my bed at night just watching TikToks and Google Giggles and whatnot. And then suddenly I switched sleeping positions on my bed, and while I was switching to sleep on my left side, my hand gently caressed my neck and I felt a literal hard lump harass my fingers. And when I tell you, my life literally flashed before my eyes, because I literally jumped out of bed and my heart started racing extremely fast, and I immediately started to inspect it. Because as I said, I have pretty severe hypochondria, and I've already been educated on weird lumps for a long time, so I immediately knew what to look for. And so when I started vigorously touching that lump on my neck, I was looking for mainly 5 things, that being, how long has it been there? How big was it? Can it move freely? And is it painless? And is it hard? And number 1, I was somewhat relieved to remember that I was sick before. As I said, I was sick 2 weeks ago. So maybe it had been there for 2 weeks max. But the health anxiety side of me was thinking, what if it's been festering there for a long time? And then I die. But for the rest of the questions, the answers were pretty horrifying to me. Because 1, it was pretty big. And then 2, no, it could not move freely. 3, it was completely painless. And 4, it was pretty hard. So as I pretty much said, all the red flags of a lymph node that you really don't want. And matter of fact, let me go into more detail actually, because the lymph node felt literally anchored to the neck, and I'll put up a picture of what it felt like. And the other thing was that it was genuinely not going to move. When I looked in front of a mirror, also, the lymph node was just straight up poking out of my neck. So it was pretty big and really visible, especially in front of a mirror. And lastly, yes, it was extremely hard. And like Google says that a healthy lymph node should feel like pressing on your nose tip, but it did not feel like that at all. And it felt like I was pressing on a pretty solid pebble, or rock, I guess. So yeah, in case you were wondering, yes, my entire winter break was ruined immediately after finding this lump. But the next day, I immediately went to urgent care because I didn't have a primary care provider because I was on winter break. And my doctor was at my college, and I was not at my college. But anyways, when I thought things couldn't get any worse, when I went to the urgent care, the nurses told me that I had a low-grade fever of 99, despite not being sick. And on top of that, I had lost 10 pounds randomly. So usually I'm 135 pounds, but at the urgent care, I was 125. And if you didn't know, those are 2 more red flag symptoms of something seriously going on. Especially the weight loss. And you know, the funniest part was that my 20th birthday was in 10 days. So I was starting to realize that when you turn 20, they really do just kill you. And like, I never in my life thought that that saying would have come true. But anyways, I was genuinely panicking like bad. And for the first time in my health anxiety journey, I was starting to feel true fear. And the urgent care doctor told me to cheer up, and gave me some blood tests and told me to wait 2 weeks to see if the lymph node goes away. But if you guys know anything about the cancer lymphoma, you can have good blood results and still have lymphoma. And by the way, at the urgent care, they were more concerned about my blood pressure being 150/90 at the ripe old age of 19. And that's literally how scared I was that I was going to get diagnosed with cancer, that my blood pressure was just out the charts. Thankfully, the blood test came back fine, but they still didn't really say much. And however, 2 weeks had gone by, like the 2 weeks that the doctor told me to wait, and instead of shrinking down, the lymph node was exactly the same size and had not gone away. And it was about 1 to 2 centimeters if you like felt it by touch. And if you go on Google, it usually says that a lymph node should last about 1 to 2 weeks, or a swollen lymph node, it should only last 1 to 2 weeks. But by then, it had been 4 weeks and the lymph node was still there. So the amount of anxiety and depression that I was building at this point was just, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it just felt like imagine hell, except it's your bedroom as you lay on your bed and stare at the wall, wondering if you'd live to see 21. And also get this, while I was waiting, I literally started to develop more symptoms, like very mild night sweats and itching, which are again 2 more symptoms of lymphoma. And the night sweats felt like I'd wake up and I'd feel my back and there was just water there, or sweat, but it just felt like there was water on my back. And it was nothing crazy like the drenching night sweats that people say they get, but it still kind of scared me because I was like wondering, what if they eventually do turn into drenching night sweats and then I just, die. And the itching, it mainly developed at night, where I just constantly felt a need to itch as I slept. Sometimes I'd even wake up to itch. And at this point, I had a swollen lymph node, I lost 10 pounds, had low-grade fevers, was sweating at night, and was itching. And I realized that those were all recognized symptoms of lymphoma, and I was absolutely petrified and horrified because it was starting to get real. And anyways, I waited about 2 more weeks and immediately went back to the urgent care and asked them if I could get an ultrasound, and they thankfully got it for me. I was kind of expecting resistance, like, nah, you're good. You really don't have anything, you're young. But no, thankfully they didn't do that for me, and they gave me the ultrasound. And unfortunately, the ultrasound was scheduled 3 weeks after winter break and into a new college semester, meaning that I'd have to endure difficult engineering classes while wondering if I was going to just fold in half and die. But eventually, when it came time for the ultrasound, it had been about 6 weeks since I discovered the lymph node, which still hadn't changed one bit, by the way. It was still hard, completely immovable, painless, and big. So yeah, it was just there. But let me tell you that the saddest thing about these situations is that every time I have a health anxiety episode, my entire life just starts flashing before me. Like, I start to remember memories of me as a kid spending time with my mom, or me having fun in middle school or elementary school, or me fishing with my dad. And the nostalgia combined with not knowing if I'm going to die just hurts so much, because it felt like my entire life, everything I'd done and experienced, every thought and memory, and every accomplishment and honor all just came down to this one ultrasound that could determine the entire trajectory of my life. But anyways, I went in for the ultrasound, and by the way, my heart was literally racing at 140 beats per minute, because by the way, if you didn't know, I also have pretty bad cardiophobia. And anyways, I then had to wait another 2 weeks for the results of the ultrasound. Mainly it took so long because the hospital made some errors, and those were probably the most painful 2 weeks of my life. Just being in the dark and being anxious. But thankfully, I was so happy to hear that the lymph node looked benign as per the radiologist report. And matter of fact, I'll just read the results. It said, palpable abnormality in the right posterolateral neck. The area of palpable concern in the right posterolateral neck corresponds to a 0.2 by 0.9 by 0.9 centimeter benign appearing node with a normal fatty hilum with no focal cortical thickening or hypoechogenicity. So basically, that's all just fancy talk for a lymph node that's probably not full of cancer. And get this, the lymph node lasted another 6 months before it decided to stop monkeying around and chill out. So, and matter of fact, till this day, I can still feel it a little bit in my neck, but it's much more squishier and smaller than before, thank God. And this health anxiety episode did not come free, by the way. I ended up getting set back $700 of my own money in urgent care and hospital fees, which genuinely makes my blood boil because of course I had to get a lymph node that wasn't normal, which made me spiral into panic. And I don't know, sometimes it feels like I'm just getting trolled, because if I had a benign lymph node this whole time, why couldn't it have been movable and had gone away in 2 weeks? Like, why'd it have to last 6 entire months? Like, is that even normal for a benign lymph node? I don't know, but it is gone now, so